My name is Neil, Valerie, Eric, Kate and Pierre. I'd like to ask you each for a couple of minutes to give us a quick review of what you thought 2014 did for you in terms of the apps that you made and the markets that you were involved in. So, shall we start, Valerie?
Yeah, sure, I'll start. 2014, wow, very, very competitive year. A lot of 3D, as we saw today, and I think video as well. We're trying to get the children involved and to interact. And I like what John said about getting them out and about. I think that's good as well.
2014, I think, yes, still very competitive. For us, we've been very lucky that we started breaking even at the end of 2014. So hopefully we'll actually make money this year. Maybe. And it's interesting because I mean our business model has totally changed. I was talking to some people where 2014 the main focus was finding marketing partners. So people like Save the Children, Bowdoin, airlines and family brands, where they would be they would basically pay us, so business sales on our digital books. But this year our focus, it looks like, is going to be on selling rights to books that we've launched ourselves. So it's interesting how this year we're starting out, breaking even, but also probably changing the business model. So we'll see. None of this is strategic either, just kind of going with the flow.
We're a print and digital publisher, and I think it's worth saying in the UK, the children's print market grew by 9% last year. The e-book market, and I know that's not what we're talking about here, but the e-book market for 0 to 12-year-olds almost doubled in the year. So I think that's an interesting comparison. However, the e-book market for 0 to 12-year-olds still represents only 5% of the books that are bought in the UK. And so I think that we are still challenged by those of us who are interested in exploring the digital space. We're still challenged by parental and educational and librarian willingness to engage with digital reading, particularly for younger children. And I think if we feel that would be a very strong sense I have. I did a conference, a presentation to librarians in the UK, and I went through the whole thing, and I said, and this is how it works, and I showed them we do a lot of fairy tale apps, some of you may know them, and they've been very successful and they have huge critical acclaim. And the librarian at the end, so I said, have you got any questions? And he was kind of stunned silence. And then one of the librarians put up their hand and said, do you really think we would use this in our library? Why, yes! And that was why I thought I was here. And I just thought it was so interesting. And that was somebody who had never envisaged the possibility of digital. And I was talking to David Midbury actually about Nosy and thinking about the fact that we were making apps. We came here in 2010 with something on an iPod Touch. And at that point, the iPad, which is without question the thing on which most of our apps are consumed, or used, or read, was still 2 months from launch. So I just think we have to really be realistic about what I think is called the Gartner curve. Do people know the concept of the Gartner curve? That it kind of goes, I'm now going to draw with my pen on this screen, it kind of goes, oh, it's all terribly exciting, it's all terrible, huge disillusionment, sump. Yeah, and then a kind of plateau that happens over here. And I think a lot of traditional publishers are right now in the disillusionment slump.
Yeah, that's I'm not really a book publisher. I'm in the educational space, I do educational apps. But what I see, it's from my numbers, it's really a growing market. Last year I didn't release a new app for many reasons because I've got to do a lot of updates for my previous apps, and it is my best year. So I think the market is growing. It's clear, everybody knows that, but there is a lot of competitors. There is a lot of players, and I saw also that established players like Nosy perhaps and in the kids space like Boca Boca, Dr. Fonda, and Story Toys, of course. And they are here, and you know, to sell apps, the best way is not only featuring on the App Store, it's also word of mouth and cross promotion. So people that are here for a long time, since 2010, like me, and Story Toys and others, it's easier for them because they got a user base. So if you are new in the space, I think it's more and more challenging to be to have some visibility and to stay and to be visible. But we are all here because we know that it is the future. So we have to start if you have not started yet. I don't know exactly if everybody has launched apps or it is for the future. But I think the market is here, and we just have to create really great apps, and you can have a good success.
Thanks. Can we just move quickly on to price of apps? I mean, everyone tries many different things, everyone has successes, failures, things go up, things go down, and I think these stories that you share about what you've done to sell the apps are very valuable because everyone has businesses to run. So could we just go around the same curve again and talk about that question of pricing?
We've tried a lot of different pricing strategies. We're in the kids area, so we don't believe in free with IAP. We think that it's better for the parents to decide what they buy and then to have the content available to the child. It can be debated, but that's our position today. We don't intend to change. But because of competition, we're thinking of making probably more free apps, small apps that are just a window to the larger app. We tried it 5 years ago, and it wasn't that easy because the problem is you get really bad reviews. Even when it's free, people want it to be great, right? So it's a very, very difficult game to play. But we found our place. I think we were at the $3.99 mark for everything that we consider to have high educational content, and then
that's
$99 and euros because now they're the same on the App Store. Yeah. And then for Astropolo and another app that are more games, we're at the $2.99 mark. And on Android, you can decide the price depending on the market, and I think that's something that Apple should do because pricing in the US and pricing in Europe is completely different, and let's not even talk about China.
Our app, Amiibo, is completely different because it's a free app with in-app purchase, and we recently, last spring, we launched a web store too, so you can buy the digital books in our digital bookshop via the web store and then port it onto your device if you have an account, which is something I always want people to sign up for accounts, so we build the community. And so we find that, there is no magic price. Obviously, it's not necessarily true that the cheaper the book, the more you sell. It's almost more of a traditional retail model where whatever's on the top banner of the website sells more that day. So there's ways to raise the price to say $2.99, this is pound sterling, or £3.99, but feature it more and you will make more that day. The best-selling books do better at a higher, not the highest price point, but a higher price point. So we find that the best-selling books at £1.99 will make the most value. The worst-selling books at around 99p will give you the most value. Yeah, but with in-app purchase, and since we moved to the web, which is good too because we don't have to share that revenue with Apple and Google, so that's an extra 30% we share with the publishers, the creators, the authors, the illustrators who publish books via our site. But it's more of a traditional web model to get people to part with their money, which I think is easier than trying to figure out the mechanics of getting people to buy an app individually. And it definitely makes search a lot easier as well to have a website.
We've done it all. We've had our games apps that are like the one I very briefly demonstrated or showed the child's response to earlier, where we're making apps that are really effectively marketing tools for print or ebook publications. Those are free. We've done one free with in-app purchasing project called Jigsaws, which we also used, was effectively a marketing tool too. And that's been an interesting experience. Not going to be something I'm retiring on, I think, in terms of money. Just saying. We've done very simple little apps that have been kind of $1.99, and most of our apps are most of the time $4.99. We've experimented with dropping prices. These are, yeah, $4.99. We've experimented with dropping prices. Our experience has been that the revenue remains static, and you increase volume, but you don't actually increase anything else. And as soon as you return the price to the level it was before, or you put up the price, then the sales rate goes to the level it was previously. So not much point doing that, I think. We've also, the other thing that's happened since last year is bundling and the opportunities around bundling. Love to know if anyone's made the bucket money that way. I know we haven't. That's not been big for us. It's been fine, I mean, and it's helped a bit, but I don't think it's been great, and we found it was quite hard to fine-tune exactly what to give away in a bundle. You know, do you give away, the question of, you're sort of tempted to give away too much some of the time, and that we then found was cannibalizing sales. So that's been quite tricky to work out. The dollar-euro parity issue is as unattractive in digital as it is in every other part of our business. And it is really, really unattractive.
Not when you're eating Bologna.
Not when you're eating in Bologna, but you know, for those of you who are operating in euro currencies, get your economies in order, people, because this is absolutely horrible for some of us. Yeah, that's I suppose that is our experience for $4.99 is kind of is where we are, and I think that I hope, like companies like TouchPress, having really good stuff means that people will pay that premium.
Yeah, I think mentioning TouchPress is really, really important, because if you look at them, they started in 2010 and they started at $10, if I remember, they stay at $10.
Can we just, sorry, Joel, what was the price of the first TouchPress app? Yeah, it was $14.99.
Yeah, even yeah. And I imagine that this is a great example that you can sell something great at a price that is, I mean, it should be a normal price for an app because it's very expensive, and everybody knows that it's difficult to break even if you sell an app at $2. And me, what I saw in 2014, because I did just an experiment and I went from $3 to $5 recently, and it was a big hit, successful app. So, and what did happen? Actually, I've got 30% more of revenue. So it works if you can raise the price. But it works, I think it works only if your apps has already a good user base and a user base that is happy and that recommends the app. So I think it's like everywhere in every market. If you have a good product with quality and people know it, they buy it. It's like Apple, you pay perhaps a little expensive phone, but you've got a really great phone, okay? People buy it. And I think that that's the main issue for the moment, that people don't know if you got quality. So that's the problem with premium apps, okay? Because you don't have, you pay in front and you don't know really what you got. So that's why free with in-app purchase are really interesting. And you know, except in kids, most of the apps are working like this. So why not in kids? That's really what I'm wondering. And your experience with AIPs is the same as me. It's terrible. It doesn't work. But why it doesn't work? Because it should be, in a way or another, and especially on Android, people want free to play, but they want to try. But the issue with kids is that we cannot put ads. But you can. Some people, there is some publisher like Telltale, I don't know if you know them, but they are using exactly the same model as, not Clash of Clans, because the ILP are not consumable, but but they also work and they also make money. So it's a business decision, and I think most of people in the kid category, they don't want to put ads. So in the end, it's still something to try, and I think also we should mention the subscription. Because if you look at the top grossing, in education in the US, for example. I think half of the apps are subscription-based. Subscription-based, it's just that people pay every month. And that's a dream for a publisher. If you can put all your books and people are okay and they pay $5 a month or $6 a month, and when the new books arrive, they got it for free, it could be really interesting for them. And I think if you look at the educational space, it works. Subscription works. So why it should not work for books, I don't know. That's not my expertise.
It's interesting you mentioned the difference in where you can price on markets for Android, but other platforms that you can't price differently. And there are some models on, I think the third platform, Windows, now offers a try before you buy for developers, so you can actually try the application from I think a day to about 3 to 4 weeks, and then they will simply disappear from your device, I think, which I think from my experience in working in this area seems to be quite a balanced way in which that can happen, where you can get a taster and you can limit it to a day. I don't know if you want to say something about that.
Sure. I mean, so we've literally just launched My Very Hungry Caterpillar on Windows, and we enabled the try before you buy to set it to 1 day. But my concern.
Sadly, my app to
that's why it expired so quick.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you for
So, but my concern with it is a lot of for Caterpillar I think it's fine, but a lot of the content we make is a linear story with interactivities. Once that is consumed, it can be very comfortably consumed in a day. It's less compelling, I think, than say a game where you play it for a day and you decide, yes, I want to play this again. I think even with the best books, they don't necessarily go into the everyday reading piles. So I'm not sure that works as well with kids' content.
Sure, I mean, it's just an example of perhaps the flexibility across the platforms, which perhaps the platform owners could think that developers could pick and choose and have some options.
Just because you have, it's just your product is not just one day purchase. It's just not a book. It's an experience. It's interactive. It's a story. People, you show the reviews. People are coming back to it. So they get and
that's why that's the app that we have launched on.
Okay.
Whereas we have a lot of story-driven apps.
Yes.
That I'm not sure if it makes sense. But to your point, Neil, absolutely, it's platform choice would be nice.
But at the same time, sorry, I would be afraid in the very hungry caterpillar that people wouldn't go. Well, they can't go deep enough because you have to make it grow. So if you only have 1 day, you might think $4 for that. Never in a million years.
Sure, that's true. A lot of we have 2 bad reviews on the App Store, and they are people who haven't realized that there's more than just an egg to tap.
I think it's for those of us who remember the olden days of 2010 and light. We had the experience of we were working with linear narratives most of the time, and we released the first 2 apps that we did in both light versions with the hope of conversion to a sort of full fat version, we stopped doing that because it didn't work. We could see that children were spending a lot of time with those first 3 scenes in which, I don't know, they leave the house, really, and they walk along a path, or I think maybe one of the pigs built a house. And that idea, the child didn't know perhaps enough about 3 Little Pigs to know that there was a lot more story there. The adult wasn't with them interacting sufficiently to see that there was something that they could move up to.
we have a product called Pierre, as you know, and we've introduced about a year and a half ago in-app packs within that. And frankly, sales of those have been disappointing. And I think it's nothing wrong with the content. It's really engaging. I think it's the fact that there's a disconnect between the time at which the child actually wants the content and the time at which the parent can actually purchase that content. So I think I'm coming around to the conclusion that in-apps within children's apps is not the direction we want to go.
I love that app, but you have to pay for it at first, and you have in-apps on top. It's not free.
Yes, we've got
so you're doing the double whammy here.
That model nearly killed us, actually. I mean, you know, where you actually charge somebody and then you have a couple of in-app purchases. That sort of double dipping goes down really, really badly. But we have had success with the kind of the light model. We still put out most of our apps as a premium version that you purchase straight away, and an addition, a free version as a try before you buy, effectively, which just has a gate a quarter of the way into the story. I'd say on some of our titles, that's effectively, on some of our titles that would be almost as high as 50% of the revenue for the overall title.
That's very interesting to know. I think we may have abandoned that too early.
You know, our app is entirely in-app purchase, but it's free. And so that's a big difference.
And that's okay too. Yeah.
But I think maybe the difference is that, you know, it's essentially a digital bookshop, and so you're buying additional books, but they're not related to the one experience that you have. I don't know if that makes a difference, and people are used to purchasing more e-books essentially, but our app only exists because of in-app purchases.
I'm going to draw a line on the conversation on this topic. It is something that will run and run, and I'm sure the experimentation pricing is always important to everyone here. I do want to move to the last topic that we have for the discussion is something that in Bologna is a big issue for all the people who work here and all the people who come here, is the relationship between and I see Martin Salisbury from in the front here, just right on time, the relationship between the beautiful picture books or chapter books that we have and the digital applications that have arrived over the last 4 to 5 years. The strengths of the children's book market go on. In fact, the children's book market is driving the book market forward. All the data from Nielsen and all the data from sales the trajectory is up. And the strength and the pillar mean that applications do have a relationship together with the book. And I think some of the best work I've seen is where those applications work together with the book, or that the business models that application developers who make print books and digital apps, or sell perhaps back to the print industry. Everyone here tomorrow in these rooms will be selling the rights to their books, buying the rights of others. And I think I'd like to ask Eric to talk quickly about something that MeBooks have done recently, which I think is a fascinating flip of the usual lid of a developer. Eric.
So, I mean, as I was mentioning last year, the main business we were running was doing promotions with other companies like, family brands like airlines and fast food companies. And the thing is, they wanted to give away free books to their consumers as value adds, and they would pay us per download, which was great. But the problem is, they wanted us to confirm that week which books we could use. So when I go back to the publisher and say, can you confirm by Friday that this is okay to use, they would just laugh at me. Because of course, no, well, marketing meeting is until next week, and I don't work Thursdays, so you have to wait till the month after. So we realized, I know. So we realized we had to create our own titles. So we started commissioning our own books, with friends, with agents that were friends of ours, and with smaller publishers who were quick and nimble. And from that, now what we're doing is we're selling the physical rights back to traditional publishers, selling options to TV companies on the books that we launch, and kind of creating children's brands. And so this year at Bologna, the focus is mainly on selling rights, rather than doing any digital deals or anything. And because MeBooks has become this, I guess, a platform where it's small but growing. We have about 70,000 sort of active users in terms of people on the mailing list who haven't unfollowed us or told us to unsubscribe. That we market to, that anytime we get downloads from books from these marketing campaigns, we can reach these people directly. Publishers can all of a sudden have a community that they can reach if they're publishing something. So it's interesting because we had no idea that it would actually turn into a rights business where we're actually now we're essentially agents now. Although at the same time we are making apps, doing games and stuff, but that's almost more for fun. Whereas this, I think, long term is going to actually be more profitable.
And that's good for the writers and artists. I presume the artists that you work with for your digital application.
Yeah, we've tended to use to partner with kind of unpublished writers and artists, and not necessarily people who come from books either, but from animators, games people as well.
I've already mentioned using digital skills to market books by creating apps for those books. We also do something called Stories Aloud, which you'd find on Nosy Crow's website, www.nosycrow.com, and there's a tab called Stories Aloud. We printed a QR code, so this is not an app, a QR code in the front cover, in the inside front cover of every paperback that we do, and that delivers a digital streamed audio reading of that book, and that's worked pretty well. Otherwise, I think we are still stuck with the fact, and you talked about it in Story Toys, that squashing the book, I say this all the time, shoehorning a pre-existing book onto a screen is often makes for a very unsatisfying experience for the child. And so we still do a lot of things that are digital first. Interestingly, like you, but because we are a print publisher, we then reverse those into print, and there are 6 apps that we've done now that exist as print titles.
So we don't do books. But the interesting thing is that we've become experts in the digital area, and so now we've been contacted by book publishers who want to publish what we do. So now it's the other way around.
It sure looks like a book to me.
I mean, in Bologna, the digital area, which is going to start up tomorrow morning, Hall 26, B90, I think what we have there now is where the print and digital worlds meet, and I think it's really important they do meet. And I think for the artists and the writers as well, I think it's great for people like Martin's students who are coming out of college, these talented illustrators. I know how hard it is for them to get the first publications, and it may be those first publications might come on screen, or they might arrive in print, and then they might arrive again on all of the platforms. So I think that gives the opportunity for the young illustrators. Perhaps, Chris, would you want to say something from a writer's point of view?
The app at the minute is the really good term for a way of putting a piece of digital storytelling together and selling it, or putting it into people's lives. It feels in a way that it's become quite narrow. We're talking about it as this very clear-cut thing, but actually that space, to use the term, the digital space between a printed text and all the possible new ways of telling stories using what's becoming increasingly obvious to makers to start with, what you could do on your laptop or tablet. Just seems way open. I was wondering if people have come across examples of things which are just taking a very different approach, a different way into storytelling on a tablet.
I was really struck by how few, we didn't release an app that I felt would be eligible for the Gatsby Award, so I hadn't really, sorry, Warren, been paying very much attention this year, and I was really interested to look at that shortlist and how few of those were reading experiences. I was really struck by the fact that they weren't reading experiences, and I go on and on about this, but children are spending more and more time on screen, and I can absolutely imagine a point at which the ability to decode text ceases to be an imperative, that we can all ask Siri or whoever Siri's successor is anything, and it will not be necessary for us to have children learn to read. And reading will be like ancient Greek. One of my children chooses to learn ancient Greek, and it will be like ancient Greek. Literacy will be like ancient Greek. In my worst days, that's what I think. I believe we have a huge sort of duty to make some of the screen time reading time. I believe this really, really passionately. And there was fantastic stuff up there. Not a lot of it was reading time, was reading. Even the one that you showed with the Good Night, the Good Night Dada. You could choose to have the text, and if you chose to have the text, then it obscured the image. I mean, what? That idea of how we integrate reading into this experience seems to me to be absolutely critical, and something that it would be very interesting for the jurors to talk about over wine in Bentivoglio this evening.
One comment on this topic, because I was asked by a young boy around here if we were thinking that if they have to produce an app, they have to create some text, and I say no, you have to create the story. And something that we decided was you can read the story, you can also create the story. For example, the Sago Mini, you don't have a story already in place, but you can create your own story. If you are parents, you can tell to the kids, or the kids can do it by themselves. And one of the reasons why we didn't decide that Spot was the winner was because we weren't really able to understand which story you have inside the title, because even which kind of story you can create by yourself. So it was gorgeous, it has beautiful images, it was an extreme fluid navigation, but we didn't realize exactly which kind of story it had inside. So yeah, I think that the difference is reading and storytelling. I think this is one of the most intriguing
I think that's really
topic
interesting
in the area.
I'd say some play is story, some story is play, but they're not synonymous.
No, I agree.
I'm not, I don't sell books, but I got a lot of experience with my kids, and what I think is that I saw with my kids, it's only my experience, but my kids are reading a lot, but they're reading books. They're not reading on tablets, you know, they love books. Books is something fantastic, but on tablet I think that products like story, for example, Caterpillar, it was a perfect example for me, because there is no text. It's just an experience, storytelling, but interactive, a new way of storytelling. So is text very important in apps? That's a good question, I think.
Martin, about, I don't know if I'm right in saying the mark of good illustration is able to have narrative within it. You should be able to read an illustration. A lot of the best picture books are actually wordless, and the experience there is the story. I mean, is there something you'd like to know about the role of illustration in screen? Do your students find that different?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm picking this up very late, and I'm sure you've been talking about it for ages. I think, yes, it's about, for the illustrator or picture book maker, it is about visual sequence, yeah, and there's all sorts of other qualities in illustration itself. Just very quickly, we had a visit to our students the other day of two people who just created an app. One is a former student of mine, Chinese girl, and her partner, as in boyfriend partner, is also an illustrator. They're both illustrators, but the girl, Anne, is the first example I've known of an illustrator who is crazy about mathematics and did all the coding herself. So the two of them, you know, I think work incredibly closely, understanding each other, to make a really beautiful alphabet app. I'm sorry I'm getting off the point here, but it's just my main sort of hobby horse is always the kind of technos and the artists never quite seem to meet, but I thought this was wonderful.
Warren said, do you think a child would prefer, he said, pretty pictures, which I felt was a little pejorative, there you go, pretty pictures, or do you think a child would want control? And I think too often we're sacrificing aesthetic, really beautiful art. A lot of the time we're sacrificing really beautiful art to a kind of functionality and utility, and that worries me as well. But I would say children get better at reading because they practice reading. And if children are not going to be spending as much time reading books, and there is real evidence that despite that increase in sales, children are not spending as much time reading books, they will get less good at reading. Is that something we're happy about? I know I'm not happy about it. I would like there to be engaging reading experiences on screen.
And also, they need to be getting other kinds of compelling literary, if they are going to read this, I don't mind desperately if they're getting equally compelling multimedia narrative worlds that can have the same power. I think that's it's not just back to the book, it's sort of forward to what we really care about in terms of imaginative film.
I want there to be text.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to microphone on. And there we go. We're going to have to close on that point. There is plenty of time this evening, and there are 3 days of talks and events in the digital cafe from Monday to Wednesday. So a lot of these discussions will continue on there. We're now going to close the panel and have the final talks, which will introduce the new setup. So thank you for having us, and thank you.
Thank you, Neil.